Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about the brand new movie which was simply titled Nahir, I believe is how you pronounce it, Nahir. And as far as I know, let me just check, but as far as I know this movie was actually from Argentina. They speak Spanish, but it's an Argentina movie. Or maybe, Argentina, maybe they do just speak Spanish. I'm not familiar with their native tongue. I only speak English. But this movie, I have a love-hate relationship with it because I love the concept of the movie. It's actually based on true events of Argentina's youngest female, I guess you could almost call her a teenager, so to speak, to receive a life sentence of, I think it was like first-degree murder. She ends up getting sentenced to murder for murder, and she ends up getting a life sentence. And she was Argentina's youngest person ever to get that heavy, to get a sentence that heavy. And she's super young. In fact, she's so young that she will actually be alive. Or, I mean, unless something happened to her in prison or, something unfortunate happened to her medically. But as long as everything goes, as long as nature doesn't, do anything too crazy, she would be out when she's only in her, 50s or 60s. I think 50s, actually. So she's so young that she, even after serving a life sentence, she'll still be young enough to be able to get out and have some of her life free once again. So it's very interesting that this movie was made based on that story. So the reason why I have a love-hate relationship with this story is because I really love the concept. I love the idea that we have this real-life tragic story turned into a movie based on, well, as we know, the youngest Argentinian female to get this kind of sentence. But I hated the idea, or I hate how they filmed it and how they translated it to film. I just felt like they didn't do a good job, especially with the murder itself. They do show you the murder on the movie, but I just felt like it was so anticlimactic. And not only was it anticlimactic, but it happened way too early. Like, that's something that they should have saved until pretty well the end of the movie. They do sort of give you this big reveal at the end of the movie, almost like a twist or a plot twist. So you'd have to take that with a grain of salt, whether or not you believe her, if she's telling the truth, or whether or not she was just making up lies against another individual. I guess you would have, I would assume that she was lying, or else I would think that the police would have investigated and done their due diligence just to make sure they never put someone innocent in jail. So I would assume that she was really lying about the whole ordeal, but you don't really see that until the very end of the movie. So I just feel like it was so anticlimactic to see how it happened, how she killed the person, and even the reasoning behind it I thought was very weak. And I'm not saying that there's never a reason to kill somebody. You should never take a life. Taking a life is like a last measure, and even then it's only done for self-defense. It's never done intentionally just to go out and take a life. And I would even argue, even in self-defense, you should try very hard. In fact, you should not take a life at all costs. Maybe if you have to disable somebody because they won't give it up or won't stop trying to hurt you, then okay, disable them, but don't ever take a life, like it's a last resort, you know what I mean? But also, that don't give you the right to go on to somebody else either. If you have to go that far, then I guess, in the name of self-defense, if if 100% is either you or them, well, then I guess, we'd have to leave that up to our own opinions. But you get what I'm saying. I just feel like the reasoning why she done it was just so weak, and really wasn't, it really wasn't enough for this person to have to suffer and lose his life. So I really loved the idea. I really loved the concept. I really loved the idea of the story, but I really did not like how it translated. I don't like how they filmed it. I just thought that the editing choices were just, not so much the editing, but more so the directorial, the way it was directed. I just felt like it could have been done so much better. It was very anticlimactic, and it was really, I also never really cared enough about any of the characters. I would think that in this type of movie, they would want to make you feel either sympathy with the killer or sympathy with the victim, or maybe sympathy toward them both. They could have turned this into a very emotional story where it was a very sad consequence, or a very sad tragic outcome. But instead, I never really felt any emotion towards any of them. I didn't really care about the victim or even the murderer. Now, I sympathize with the victim in real life, obviously, and their family, but in terms of this movie, I didn't really feel emotionally connected to any of them, whatsoever. And so I think that that also is, you know, is sort of a failure on part of whoever it was that made the movie, you know, the writers, directors, you know, the studio, whatever, you know, that whole team that created or produced this film, I think have really failed on the emotional level. And if you're going to do this type of sort of biopic based on real events about somebody who loses their life, it has to be emotional. You have to bring that gravitas to the production, to the feature, and really make you have to care for somebody in the movie, especially with something so tragic. And I just felt like you never really care for any of them, the victim, the murderer, or either one of their families either. So I was really torn with that. I thought, like I said, I loved the idea of them making this kind of movie, but the way it was translated, for me, it just didn't work. And so because I thought that the editing was the directing was done very poorly, the way that the whole thing was produced, it was very anticlimactic and very anti-emotional. There are no emotions, no climax, no nothing. For me, the movie was just kind of like, well, then why did you do it? You know, we can just read the news or find out the true events about what happened to it, or watch the actual court case or whatnot. I'm sure online somewhere there's probably video of the real deal. And so we didn't really need this movie, and I really didn't really care for the movie. So because of that, for me, I would fail this movie just because it was so anticlimactic and so anti-emotional. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't sympathize for the victims or the murderer or either one of their families. I do in real life. I sympathize for them in real life, but not in terms of this movie. I didn't really care about anybody in the movie, and I just felt like it was such an anticlimactic event that happens that I just really didn't care. And so because of that, I would fail Nahir. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen this movie, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click the subscribe button. Until the next one, take care.